All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, mandatory minicamp for the New York Jets is officially over. Let's talk about it, right? Let's talk about some of the positives. I have 6 listed here, 6 total positives. Man, there's a ton of really encouraging things coming out of this little 3-day period here. And also, too, at the same time, being objective, we have to talk about some questions. Now, I only did write down 2 total questions. So obviously walking away with more positives than negatives here, but let's dive into it. So the first 2 positives, super easy, super obvious. No injuries, great attendance, right? I mean, could you imagine if, whatever we're going about our day, we get a notification, Sauce Gardner's down. Will McDonald has to be stretchered off the field. Like, that is just a nightmare situation, right? Nightmare scenario here in June. We didn't have any sorts of issues like that whatsoever. Thankfully, we did not have a situation like that. We've seen it before where in the offseason, the Jets have this devastating blow. We could think back like Chuck Clark a couple years ago. Like, he tore his ACL not even doing a team sort of activity. Like, it was kind of like an unclear situation. But man, talk about all the offseason injuries that the Jets have sustained throughout the years. Mekhi Becton dealt with stuff. It was just brutal, right? Absolutely brutal. So again, thankfully, no sort of issues like that. Full go for training camp, July 22nd. And again, perfect attendance here. That's obviously really good, really encouraging, right? New coach, new culture, new general manager. I understand that people want to make a good impression on the new staff, but, we're seeing a lot of guys hold out. Shamar Stewart's holding out with Cincinnati. Trey Hendrickson. Terry McLaurin is another guy that's holding out. TJ Watt is holding out. There are guys that are missing this portion of camp and like around the league. But with the Jets, not really that issue, right? It seems like everyone wants to be there, even the guys that are on one-year deals, or let me rephrase that. Guys that either have expiring contracts, Breece Hall, AVT, John Simpson, guys in that range, or the superstars of this football team, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, they're out there, they're participating, they're not doing some weird holdout or anything like that. And granted, they do both still have the 5th-year option because they're both first-round picks, so it's not like they're in their last year of their contract from a technical standpoint. But still, we all know that these guys need to be paid. Man, I hope it's sooner rather than later, because if we just follow the trends in the National Football League, when you have young stars, when you have guys with this type of production and upside, and there's a lot of people in or out of football that feel really good about just the trajectory of these guys' career, just get it done. Just get it done. So speaking of Garrett Wilson here, let's talk about the third positive. It is Garrett Wilson. This is someone who, and look, it's mandatory minicamp. He's not being tackled. Things could definitely change once training camp rolls around, but supposedly he was far and away the team's best wide receiver. Supposedly he was the best offensive player. I mean, there were reporters talking about him being unguardable, just like unstoppable in the offensive period. Now, there also seemed to be a pretty big effort from the Jets coaching staff to force Garrett Wilson the football, not in a bad way or in a weird way, but more so like establishing you are the guy, you are the tier 1 wide receiver of this football team. You are, fantastic. We're going to make it a point. We're going to get you the football. You are going to be the focal point of this passing game. And on the surface, it's pretty obvious, okay, yeah, Garrett Wilson's going to be catching passes, right? Of course. But if we think back to just last season, there were times where, like, Garrett would have a quiet game where he wouldn't even get looks. Aaron Rodgers wouldn't look his way. Maybe the passing attack was more so focused around Devontae Adams or Allen Lazard or something, because we know the Jets weren't running the football. It was just kind of strange, and you felt like at times Garrett was disgruntled is a strong word, but unhappy on the sidelines. There were moments where he just looked frustrated, like, hey, I'm a good young player. I want to be able to contribute. Please throw my way. Not so much like George Pickens or Stephon Diggs, where it's full on, temper tantrum, freaking out. But you can definitely tell, like, just when the camera would pan over to him on the sidelines, like, or it'd be like 2 minutes left before half, and we're looking at the stat sheet during commercial break, and it's just, it's like Garrett doesn't have a catch. Garrett doesn't have a target or something like that. It was just, very odd situations. It felt very selective on who the Jets wanted to utilize during games last year. So again, whatever, it's mandatory minicamp. We'll see, how things progress during the regular season. But early on, I like the effort. It seems like it's a concerned effort by this coaching staff. Like, hey, you know what? But I do like the effort here by the coaching staff. Like, hey, Garrett, you're our guy. You're the wide receiver one. Get ready because the ball's coming your way. I like that. Personally, I think another big positive coming away from mandatory minicamp is Justin Fields on numerous levels. Number one, he was pretty impressive. Supposedly, he was connecting on passes, again, getting Garrett Wilson involved, a couple touchdowns. He looked like the guy. You had a couple comments from players saying, "Whoa, Fields has a really, really strong arm," or he's a lot faster than what he looks like on tape, or maybe previous, assumptions. Like, this guy can really move with the football in his hands. And that's all that's all really, really cool. He's getting praise from players. He's getting praise from coaches. Again, he's looked good on the field, albeit he's not being sacked or, there's no contact here. So subconsciously, he knows he's not going to be hit. Maybe things change when full pads come on and everything is greenlit. But, up to this point, everything's been positive from Justin. You're listening to him in press conferences. He sounds totally motivated to be here. Finally, the system is kind of being built for Justin. You look back in Chicago, there were question marks there about maybe offensive fit or what the coaching staff did to really structure the offense around Fields' skill set. Did it really happen? I think a lot of people would probably say no. Obviously, in Pittsburgh, it was Arthur Smith's offense. It was Arthur Smith's way, his way or the highway type of thing. With the Jets here, it's like, no, you're the starter. You're our guy. It seems like Glenn and Fields have a really good connection. They really are like responding well with one another. But it's like the offense is Justin's. Here are the keys. Now you drive the car. This is your car built for you. You got to take control now. And Fields, again, arguably, you can say he's never really been in this position before. So really, really excited about Justin Fields. I don't think anyone's expecting him to be Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Justin Herbert, one of these top, tier one guys. But from the offensive struggles that the Jets have had over, I don't even know how many years now up to this point, it's I'm personally really, really excited, really intrigued by how this offense is going to look on Sundays. And also, an underrated thing to make a note of, from voluntary OTAs up through today, mandatory minicamp, it seems like Fields has gotten better, right? Early on, it seemed like Fields was just like, he's missing throws and, all the leadership stuff was all there and everything, but like the on-field stuff, like getting sacked a lot. Supposedly he's holding on to the football for too long. But it seems like at the end of mandatory minicamp, like all those maybe areas of concerns looked a little bit better. Not completely solved or anything like that. Again, he's not expected to be a top 3 quarterback in football, but he's trending up. He's getting better over time, which I really, really like. I think another big positive, too, are the edge rushers, right? Whether you want to talk about Will McDonald, Rashad Weaver coming into the fold here. I mean, I feel like every single day, whether it's a voluntary OTA, whether it's a mandatory minicamp practice, like Fields is getting sacked. There are multiple edge rushers are getting into the backfield. You have different guys making plays. And that's something that I feel like Jets fans we're kind of used to. I mean, keep in mind, no Jermaine Johnson here, but, it's like we're used to seeing it in the training camp, in the off-season sessions, like our edge rushers being able to get home. Part of that is because the room is very, very good and deep and talented. And then a part of it is because the offensive line, for the most part, over these past couple of years, there's been holes. There's been areas of concern. We're obviously led by 2 defensive-minded head coaches here, and Robert Saleh and Glenn. So you could assume, like, okay, you know what, especially in these non-contact portions, the defensive line should have an edge over these offensive linemen. But hey, that is a really, really big positive because, again, on the surface, if you're comparing it to last season, it's like, no more Hassan Reddick. Not saying Reddick was a contributor, but he was, a rotational piece. Jermaine Johnson coming back from the Achilles, and it doesn't really feel like. So we've lost a couple names here, at this section, but it still seems like the production is still there. The production is still ramped up to where it was, last season, the season before that. So really encouraging stuff coming out of the edge rusher group. Now, ideally, I do feel like I would add one more piece. Because I don't want to be forced to, or I don't want to see this Jets team force Jermaine Johnson back. I don't think they will. But if he's out through a portion of training camp, I wonder who those those edge rushing, pass rushing reps are going to be going to. Maybe they're just going to hand them straight to Weaver. Maybe they're going to bring in like a Zadarius Smith, who's worked with Glenn before in the past. Maybe a Jadeveon Clowney. The Jets right now are just sitting at a pretty decent amount of cap space. I believe right now they are either 4th or 5th in the NFL, 30 plus mil. So we could definitely afford to bring in another edge rusher. But for the time being, positive stuff here. Last big positive takeaway. The morale, man. I guess the attendance kind of goes hand in hand with it, but it seems like whether you want to talk about national media, beat reporters, coaching staff, player comments, press conferences, whatever it may be, people that are attending these, these sessions, it seems like the morale is different and everyone is very, very encouraged. Everyone wants to be there. Everyone wants to get better. I know Connor Hughes did a little video segment. I think it was, I don't know if it was on his personal Twitter or if it was for the SNY Twitter, but he basically said that the practices feel a little bit different. There's a sense of like competitiveness. You get like, it doesn't matter. We're all on the same team here, but we all got to compete. When we step on the field, I think Glenn is always talking about, when we hit the grass, everyone's going 100%. Foot slammed down on the gas pedal, everyone is competing, and that's really creating not only just competitive practices, but also, a really enjoyable environment for all these different players. So, man, lots of positives to take away from mandatory minicamp, for me at least. Now, just a couple questions here. The first is regarding the wide receiver position outside of Garrett. It doesn't really feel like any of the other wide receivers are pulling away for that wide receiver 2 spot. Now, again, it's early. Training camp is going to be the real test for that, especially when pads come on and, guys can really like lower their shoulder. How are these guys doing after contact? It's not so much the plays over once the pass is caught, and there's kind of like that little, kind of mesh of players afterwards. But it just would have been really cool or really nice to hear multiple reporters talking about, take your pick, right? Tyler Johnson, Josh Reynolds, Lazard, right? Oh, so-and-so's catching everything thrown his way. So-and-so looks maybe a little faster than anticipated. Someone's picking up the offense really, really well. It seems to have kind of this natural connection with Fields. Oh, man, this guy can really jump. He can really elevate. So-and-so is actually having a really, really impressive showing against Sauce Gardner, right? Something like that. We didn't really get a ton of those updates, and I'm not going to say it's disappointing. It's freaking mandatory minicamp in June, but right now, wide receiver 2 is a question coming into the offseason. Well, coming in a free agency, it's still a question after the draft. It's a question here in June. It's a question here after mandatory minicamp. When will we have an answer for it? Will we have an answer for it? Or will it just kind of be a rotation of guys just trying to absorb the volume that the typical wide receiver 2 would snag on a week-to-week basis? So again, that's one area maybe of concern for me right now. Now, another really, really small question for me, again, because there was no contact here, the amount of sacks that were let up. On one hand, hey, it's a positive for the edge rushers, it's a positive for the defensive line, but you kind of felt like in every single session, we have multiple reporters talking about sacks. He's going down. And, at some point, it does make you look at the offensive line and say, what's going on here? But again, no pads, there's no contact. Offensive linemen can't just truly enforce their will upon these defensive tackles and defensive ends and whatnot, just because it's just not that physical. These sessions are not that physical. So again, small question there, but I figured I'd bring it up just because, it is a reoccurring theme in every single one of these sessions. There's like, a couple sacks, or in some cases, like a lot of sacks. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments section. Mandatory minicamp is in the books, one step closer to the start of the regular season, one step closer to training camp here. Man, I'm freaking fired up. Cannot wait for it. Lots of videos on the way. Thanks so much, and as always, go Jets.